Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to the Catholic Mama, where you'll learn how to deepen and defend your faith, find comfort as we share the vocation of parenthood, and learn how to raise your children confidently Catholic. I'm your host, Christine Mooney Flynn. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the Catholic Mama. I'm your host, Christine Mooney Flynn. Thank you so much for listening. I hope it's a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night, whenever and wherever you're listening. Here, where I am outside of Philly, it's just been raining for the past 6 months. And that just means it's been mosquitoes for the past 6 months. So there's a bright spot on the forecast sometime later this week where it hits below 50 degrees. Here's a little tidbit of trivia for you, for any factoid person. Maybe this will help you in Quizzo or something one night. If you want the mosquitoes to go away, it has to drop below 50 degrees. Then they die off for the year. So I've been patiently, and not so patiently actually, waiting for this moment to happen, and it looks like it's going to happen later this week so I can actually go outside. My husband, I run hot all the time. So in the middle of the summer, it's terrible for me. So I'm very excited about the cold months coming ahead. My husband is the exact opposite. He runs cold and so enjoys the warmer weather a little bit better. At least he's not as big of a baby about it as I am. Speaking of being opposites, my husband and I are actually opposites in a lot of different things. And we actually talked about this in an episode of this podcast not too long ago. Maybe it was a while ago. How We Make Our Marriage Work, I think is what it was called. Where we really just realized we kind of are shocked every once in a while. We realize we're so different in so many ways. He'll say, you know what I really want to do tonight? And I'll say, that sounds terrible. Or I'm really in the mood for this. Let's go out to dinner. I'm like, no, I would like the exact opposite of that. But what it turns out is that where we are very opposite in some of the more mundane things when it comes to the more important things, like now converting to Catholicism, we're on the same page, which is probably why this whole thing works in the first place. But anyway, that is not what we're talking about tonight, or today, this morning. Sin, everybody's favorite topic. No. So I started doing this Bible study at my church, and it's in the 5th year of doing it, and I know that it's nationwide. It's called Walking with Purpose. And I believe, I can't think of the woman who started it. I have her book. Hold on. Let me see. Lisa Breckennickmeyer. I don't even know what I'm saying. Brennickmeyer. It's a very long last name. But she was raised evangelical and converted to Catholicism because her husband is Catholic, and they got married, and I guess she found her way to Catholicism that way. And she's like, hey, you Catholics don't know the Bible. What's up with that? So she took her deep understanding of the Bible from her evangelical upbringing, blended it with the Catholic teachings, and came up with many courses. I can't remember if it's like 7 or 10 of Bible study, and each one focuses on a different aspect. This is my first year doing it, so I don't know all of them. Our church has enough women. It's actually really amazing. There's over 100 women who get together every Tuesday morning to split up into 2 groups. There's opening your heart, the starting point. That's like 101, which I'm in since this is my first year doing it. And then the second group cycles through one of the other Bible studies that is part of this Walking with Purpose. So we just met once, but even in that first brief meeting, there's like a video that you watch, a 30-minute video. And in it, there was one thing that really stuck out. I already know what my issues are. I think I'm lucky enough that I'm self-aware. It took a long time because I thought that I was right to feel certain ways, but it just turns out that was just ego, as it were. So in this video, they kind of go through 4 steps of how you're going to get through this program over the next, because it's a year long. This goes through the whole school year. So 9 months of this Bible study, how to make the most of it. The second one was something that I hadn't really heard of. I'm new to Catholicism and even new to the idea of believing in sin. I said this in a previous podcast. I was spiritual, but not religious. I had no desire really for a very long time to admit to the idea of sin. Sin just sounded like some patriarchal nonsense, trying to keep me down from doing what was going to make me happy. And I gotta tell you, I was miserable when I was like that. I was just acting out and acting in any way I felt like, and I hurt a lot of people and stunted some growth that I could have had for myself during that time. So I want to stop here for just a second and note, because I've heard this from others recently, the idea of being a sinner or being someone who sins makes you uncomfortable. I want you to sit and think about maybe why that is the case before we move on, because we can say, oh, we're fallen, we're sinners. And even I was reading the True Devotion to True Devotion to Mary? I'm going to get this wrong. It's the consecration that Louis de Montfort wrote. And even now he's saying, oh, as wretched as we are, as sinners as we are, and it's hard to hear that we should be wretched. But we are sinners and we have fallen, and to deny that does a great disservice to any kind of growth. It is just what we are, and you can take a quick scan in your life, in the people around you and the world at large, and see that, yeah, it's not perfect. And the faster that we can acknowledge that and be okay with the fact that we're fallen and this isn't all hunky-dory, the more we can move on. We can actually learn and grow. So to that end, what I was learning about, and it's very brief in the Walking with Purpose, that first lesson, but so I was starting to look into it a little bit more. So I know what drives me, but the first thing that we have to understand is that we all are driven by something. And it's very nice if you say you're driven by love. That's cute. You may be, but there's other things that drive us. Love does not drive us to cut somebody off in traffic and wave our fist furiously at them. Love does not drive us to say something petty to our spouses when we really should just keep our trap shut. There are other things that drive us. We are sinners. We are fallen. These things just... St. Paul said in Romans, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. How many times this happens to me? Be like, oh, afterwards, like, why did I do that? I missed a perfect opportunity. This would have been great. And you kind of beat yourself up a little bit. We are what we are. So we're driven by these things. Now, theological teaching will tell us that we are driven. There are 3 possibilities for root sin. So there are lots of ways to sin, lots of ways we can fall short. Now remember, to sin comes from the Greek word, which I can't remember what the Greek word is right now, but to sin means to miss the mark, like an archery, right? You pull your bow back, you shoot the arrow off into space, try to get it to the bullseye, and you miss. Maybe you're a little off, maybe you're way off, but you're still off. Hitting the bullseye doesn't happen very often, at least not for experts or perfect people, such as still off. Hitting the bullseye doesn't happen very often, at least not for experts or perfect people, such as Jesus. So you miss the mark. That is what sin is. We're missing the mark. So there's lots of ways that we can miss the mark in our everyday lives. Most are small little ways, hopefully. For others, it may be very large ways. But we all miss the mark. But all those ways that we can sin boil down to 3 driving factors. And if you can figure out what your driving factor is, then you can figure out how to remedy it. But first, you have to know where you're coming from. You need that introspection. Now, in part 2 of this episode, we will look at the remedies for these root sins. But first, today, let's talk about the 3 root sins. Now, all of us have these to some extent. We just need to figure out personally which one drives us the most. So as you listen through, like, that doesn't sound like me. It sounds like me sometimes, because I was listening to, this might be you if I heard the one, I was like, whoa, I've said those exact things. I have thought those exact thoughts. That sums up any of the problems that I have, the big ones come from this one particular root sin. I may leave you in suspense for just a little bit longer before I tell you what that is, like you really care. All right. So the 3 root sins: pride, vanity, sensuality. So I'll briefly explain what each one of those is, and then talk about some major markers or identifiers for those. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that's me, or no, that's not me. So pride is a disordered attachment to our own excellence. So the proud person finds meaning and worth within themselves and their achievements. And you can come with somebody who's maybe too independent. Then you have vanity, which is somebody who seek meaning, fulfillment by being noticed, loved, appreciated by others. So they might be too dependent. And then thirdly, we have sensuality, which is a disordered attachment to keeping things easy, just having the simple life, enjoying the present moment a little too much. Oh, I don't have to worry about Monday morning. I'll just drink a full bottle of wine. It's fine. What does it matter? It's just I'm having fun right now. That sort of thing. So either any of these things, achievements, relationships, pleasure, none of these things are bad in and of themselves. The problem is when we look to attach ourselves completely and find meaning in those things over trying to attach ourselves and find meaning in God. So love your glass of wine. Love the fact that you got a promotion. Love the fact that you have a wonderful relationship. All that's great. But it should, any of those achievements, relationships, pleasures, it all should be enjoyed and appreciated and loved as through Christ. So be thankful to God for giving you these things, and put God, understand that God gave you all of these things, rather than I really want this glass of wine, I need this glass of wine, I deserve this glass of wine, or it's me that got this promotion, nobody else helped me, or wow, if I'm not noticed by my husband for the fact that I cooked dinner tonight, then what? I'm just worthless. That sort of thing. So it's a disordered attachment to those things rather than God. All right, so let's see. We're going to get some common manifestations of our first root sin is pride. Too high an opinion of yourself. If you don't get your way, or if you feel like you're being left, or if you feel like you're being left out of the decision-making process, you feel angry, put people down, gossip about people, slow to recognize your own mistakes, or when you see that you've hurt others, but quick to recognize other people's mistakes. Anger when somebody doesn't thank you for something. What else? Never taking orders. Not liking to be told what to do. Having grudges. So if you nurse a grudge, even on small things. Not feeling a need for God, or feeling like everything's on you. So I might as well just do this myself. I can get this done. I don't need anybody else. Also just kind of a general narcissism. And then, what else? What else would there be? Basically impatience. That's a big one, right? Because you are unaccepting of other people's limitations and only seeing yours as the most important one. So, too high an opinion of yourself, anger over not being considered, narcissism, being judgmental, unwilling to see your own mistakes and issues, don't like to get orders, being flexible about what you prefer. So really just centering around yourself. Okay. Does that sound like you? I'll tell you what in just a few minutes who that sounds like. Manifestations of vanity. Remember, vanity is a disordered attachment to how other people make you feel. So always seeking praise from others, and you're worried if you don't get it. Excessive concern about your physical appearance, so that, that's, I think, typically what we think of as vanity is, kind of preening, and you're being vain, I guess, looking at yourself in the mirror, wanting other people to notice you. Sacrificing certain principles that you have just in order to fit in. Is it that if you are a Christian, do you maybe downplay your Christianity in groups so that you don't feel like you're sticking out like a sore thumb? Excuse me. Taking pleasure in hearing the failures of others is another one. But at the same time, being very discouraged by your own failures and feeling like you're not going to be appreciated or valued. And also just trying to fit in, you're caring too much about popularity and how others want to see you. And you always want to be the center of attention. So it's actually quite similar in some ways to pride. But remember, pride is where you have a disordered attachment to your own self. And vanity is having a disordered attachment to your relationships with others. Okay, so does that sound like you? Thirdly, common manifestations of sensuality. Laziness, big one. You just want to be comfortable, right? If they say that all progress and growth comes from outside of your comfort zone, you're firmly in your comfort zone. Oh, I'll start Monday. Oh, no, it's not a good time right now. I'm just enjoying life. Procrastinating, that's another one. Maybe not going the extra mile for other people because it's a little too difficult, and you're kind of lazy. For better or worse, you're kind of lazy. Maybe an inability to control your impulses when it comes to anything at all. Food, drink, just comforts, buying things to make yourself feel good. If you feel like you need to have a drink, or you need to go shopping to make yourself feel better, if you need to have that chocolate, look, every once in a while that's fine. Issue in your life, then maybe sensuality is your main root sin. Maybe having not being able to override your own impulses. So you may go based mostly on feeling versus reason. So we all have feelings, and that's fine. Your reason, if it's well developed and you're disciplined, will kick in and say, yeah, okay, I feel this certain way, but I'm going to go with what the reasonable thing would be to do, the intelligent thing. If you are consumed by sensuality, then you might just go off of feelings. If you are a flake, you can't finish what you start, you make promises that you don't keep, you're fickle. You may have behavior or decisions, again, that are ruled by feelings, but also saying, hey, other people have to be ruled by my feelings as well. Let's focus on me a little bit. So again, that kind of sounds a little bit like pride. Let's focus on me a little bit. So again, that kind of sounds a little bit like pride. And also just having this general inability to sacrifice for others and the good of your household, your family, your friends, whatever it is. You and your feelings are really at the center of it. Does that sound like you? So again, we all have these we all exhibit these manifestations of these three root sins: pride, vanity, and sensuality. But there should be one in there that we can really be like, oh yeah, that's me, all right. So, and there, the other ones would be secondary or tertiary. So for me, I will say pride. When that video was going on and Walking with Purpose, and she was listing off the common manifestations, there was like 6 of them or something. I was like, oof, yep. Now some of them are more like very career driven, like, that is not me, but man, not taking orders, being really frustrated about that, or feeling very put out if somebody doesn't ask your opinion first before they make a decision. How many times I've said, oh, whatever, I'll just do this myself. I'll do it alone. It was interesting for me, and this is before I actually knew about these root sins. Not too long ago, I was having just a tough day with my kids, and typically I would have been like, oh, I can't do this. I just can't. I'm just over this. I can't even. But it's an odd thing happened, and we'll just say this is by the grace of God. Instead of getting down and saying, I just can't do this, I prayed instead. I said Our Fathers, I said Hail Marys, I did an extra few decades of the Rosary. And it was really interesting because as a pride person, for me, for anybody who's driven by pride, it tends to be, this is maybe overly independent. It's all on you. All the time, it's all on you. And one of the things that I have come to realize since converting to Catholicism and pulling myself out of this kind of more narcissistic worldview is that if I say I can't do it, that's right. I can't do it all on my own because I need God to help me do it. So as a proud person, recognizing that it's not all me at all, not even close. Like I have to give some things to God, and that is quite a challenge for me. So that's something that I've tried to challenge myself with recently, is understanding that it's not just me all on my own. That I have to give some things over. I have to give some things over to God if I want to get things done and actually be a good person on my way to growth and happiness and eternal life and all that wonderful stuff that we're all trying to get ourselves to. And it's been difficult for me, and I would imagine a lot of moms or parents, moms or dads can understand this. I'm not sure yet if I know the difference between submitting my personal will to God and letting go of trying to control everyday happenings. Like, clearly when you see this list of pride things, that those are everyday occurrences. These aren't like big, massive events in your life that you can tell, like, there's a right and wrong, good and evil. You can go, if you go down this path, you're going to go the primrose way. If you're going this path, you're on the stairway to heaven or something like that. Those are everyday things, everyday choice you make. And that's really what most of the sin is. But for me, I'm wondering, if I let go as a mom, where is that line where you let go to God's will, or are you letting go to the chaos of young children ruling the roost? I don't know. I'm still trying to work that one through. If you have any advice, please let me know. But the one thing to remember in all of this, whether you have a root sin of pride or vanity or sensuality, God is all loving. He's all patient, all just, all kind, and all knowing. He is in charge. And if we can understand what drives us, then we can understand how we can better turn our will towards God, because he's in charge. He knows what he's doing. We just have to let that happen, which is easier said than done. But in the next episode of the Catholic Mama podcast, we've gone over our 3 root sins. What I challenge you to do describes you. Meditate on that, pray on that, and then try throughout the couple of days. Notice when it crops up. Now, you don't have to beat yourself up about it. Of course, you can always go to confession and get that off your chest and get forgiven by God. I encourage that every so often to do that. But just take notice of it and see what kind of irks you. Is it like a past relationship thing that you can feel like you're holding on to some grudges or some baggage from? Is it that you don't feel like you're valued? Is it that you feel like you're taking the easy way out because you're scared of being uncomfortable? Just take notes of that. And what we'll do in the next episode is we'll look at the 3 cures to our 3 root sins. So it's not all doom and gloom. There is hope. That hope is Jesus Christ, and he has given us 3 ways that we can better know and love him, and then in turn ourselves, and then in turn serve him. So take note, see what your root sins may be, and just be a little bit more introspective if that's something that you are used to. If it's not, it's a great skill to develop. That's the only way that you have to first know your problem before you can fix it, and we all have problems. So stay tuned for that. If you don't want to miss that episode or any future episodes, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, whether you are listening to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher. And if you would, please leave a nice review. If you know anything about podcasts, maybe you have a podcast of your own, then you know that those reviews, the more reviews you have, the more it bumps up the podcast on search results. And if nothing else, in our current age, we need strong Christian voices proclaiming God against all this sensual proud, vain nonsense that is going on in our world today. So help spread this little ministry if you wouldn't mind. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you back here.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.